Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Hello everybody, my name is Ilya.
And I'm tired. I need a vacation.
What do you mean? Excuse me? You're right. But who's gonna watch all of our animals?
That's a really good question. Probably our parents?
But what about work? Both our jobs are so busy right now. I don't know if we can take time off. I don't know if that'd be fair.
Well, work-life balance is super important. We have vacation days, we should use them. It's good for our mental health.
You're right. But where should we go?
Japan?
I have always wanted to go.
Well, start packing.
I'm ready, are you?
Yeah, I think I have everything I need.
Well, let's go then!
Wait! We haven't planned any of the trip.
You're right! What are we gonna do?
I have an idea. Wow, this is perfect! This will help us plan our trip.
Hello everybody, my name is Ilya.
And my name is Tyler. Together we make up Kovray, a couple that loves to play board games.
And go on vacations.
I wish we had a vacation that we were going on soon.
Well, we need to plan one. And what a better way to plan one than to take a look at, let's go to
Japan. Let's Go to Japan is designed by Josh Wood and it's published by AEG, who helped sponsor this video. In Let's Go to Japan, you'll be planning a 6-day long trip to Japan. You'll be able to visit Tokyo and Kyoto, visiting different types of shrines, trying new foods, other unique experiences. You'll even get to go shopping, and you'll be able to have a lot of fun on the way. However, sometimes it's going to be a little bit stressful, as some vacations tend to be.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, exactly. But you'll have to juggle this through crafty and strategic planning.
This is a planner's dream, that's for sure. All that you see here today is a prototype of the game. It's pretty close to the final version, but there might be some slight tweaks in the final version. But let's dive in and give you an overview of how Let's Go to Japan is played. As always, you'll begin by setting up. You'll place the Kyoto and Tokyo decks at the center of the table, along with a round tracker, board, and marker, and various tokens within players' reach. Each player will get a board, along with a mood tracker, stress and happiness trackers, experience and favorable condition tokens, and a starting train. One player will randomly place each of their 6 favorable condition tokens in one of the circular spots corresponding to the days of the week. Every other player will then match the exact order of the tokens. You're now ready to play. In Let's Go to Japan, you'll be planning your trip through drafting and playing cards. Let's go over what a card looks like. The top section of the card will indicate what you will receive when activating the card at the end of the game. The symbols indicate the experience token and the mood track movements, while the number on the right is the victory points you'll receive from that card. The bottom of the card features the highlight of the day. If the card is the last one played in a row, you will check to see if the highlight of the day requirements have been met. If they have, you'll receive an additional bonus which is featured on the right. Each card will also have a name and a description of the activity you'll be doing that day, as well as a reminder of which city the activity is taking place. Now each turn, every player will simultaneously complete the action on the round tracker board. In the first 4 turns, this will mean drawing a card from each of the decks and playing one while passing the other to the player on your left. If you have a research token, you can spend it to draw 3 cards in any combination. You'll then immediately discard 3 cards from your hand. This will give you more options in your decision making. When playing cards, you'll have the opportunity to play in any of the 6 days. Each day will have a maximum of 3 cards in its column. The cards should overlap one another so the upper section of each card is visible, and the card at the very bottom of the column is the only one that's fully visible. When a card is added to a day where card or two are already present, you're free to place the card in any position for that day. The only restriction is you may not rearrange the cards already placed. Couple things to keep in mind when playing cards. Well, first, if you don't like the options you have in your hand, you may go for a walk instead, by placing a card face down in any of the days. This will grant you a research token, and when going on a trip at the end of the game, you'll have the opportunity to choose if the card will remain face down or flip it face up for its effects. These cards can also be the highlight of the day and will score 2 points at the end of the game if placed at the end of the day. Now be mindful where you place Kyoto and Tokyo cards, as each time you shift cities, even in between days, you'll have to take a train. You'll be able to acquire more train tokens throughout the game, but for any you're missing, you'll lose 2 victory points at the end of the game. Matching symbols with the day will also be beneficial for your bonuses, as when a third card is played, depending on how many symbols you've matched with a favorable condition token, you'll receive a bonus. If you matched only 1, you'll move the mood tracker 1 space to the right. If you match 2, you'll have a choice of acquiring 2 research tokens from the supply or 1 wild token from the supply. If you acquire 3 or more, you'll have the choice of a train token or going on an extra walk. Going on an extra walk will allow you to add a face-down card without looking at it to that day from either of the card stacks. This is the only time a column will have 4 cards instead of 3 at the end of the game. You will also not get a research token from this as you would if you've played a card from your hand on your turn. Now if you match 2 or 3 icons, you always have the option to also choose the lesser bonus in those categories. Now once you played your card or cards, you'll pass the 1 or multiple you did not play face down to the board of the player on your left. At this point, you have no cards in your hand. You'll now slide the round tracker token to the next space and repeat. As the game continues, you'll notice you'll be drawing from the pile of past cards and playing and passing varying amounts of cards. Starting on the 8th round, you'll also switch the direction in which you're passing the cards, meaning you'll pass the cards to the player on your right instead of left. Once the last round is complete, you'll place all your necessary trains on your cards and you're now ready to score. At this point, you'll activate the cards in your itinerary from Monday to Saturday, starting from the card at the very top of the column for Monday and going downward in that column so that the upper section of each card is activated. This is followed by the highlight of the day bonus. You'll then note the score of each player and repeat for the following days. Let's go over an example. On Thursday, you'll first visit the Meiji Jingu Shrine, which will gain you 2 experience tokens. You'll then go to the Gotokuji Temple, which will also gain you 2 experience tokens. Last, you'll go to the Zojoji Temple, which will gain an experience token and move you on the mood track. Now you'll notice you'll move to the very last space of the mood track, which means you'll score the corresponding points as noted below. Now the highlight of the day is go to the nearby Tsukuji Fish Market. If I have these 3 symbols on this day or prior to, I will score 7 points, and I do have them. So my total for Thursday is 15 points. I'll mark those down and move on to the next day. Now once all the days have been scored, you'll sum the points received from the stress and happiness markers, points from the experience trackers. You'll always score the last point value crossed. You'll add up the points for your trains, and any research tokens you have left over will be worth 1 point each. You'll sum up the points, and the player with the highest score wins.
Will your trip to Japan be the most perfectly planned so that you can have the most fun?
I love planning trips.
It is very exciting, although it's less stressful than this game because you've got time to shift things around.
That's true. Here, you're in a crunch line, but you know what? That's how vacations happen. You gotta just plan and you gotta go for it.
It's true, yeah.
Well, what are our first impressions of Let's Go to Japan?
This is a really fun and fast-paced game. I think the feel gives me that like grind of where you're starting off slow and it's like, oh, I can get away with putting these cards here. But once you get to like the middle rounds or even like the rotating round where you've got to swap the direction, that's where it can kind of get a little bit more stressful and you start to begin to wonder if you've planned correctly.
It's funny because it kind of has a thematic feel too, where in the beginning you're like, I'll do this on the Tuesday, I'll check this out on the Wednesday, and all of a sudden you have to plan 2 things at once, and it's all like, oh, nothing is working. We have to take the train, but we took the train earlier in the morning, but now you're saying we have to be back in Tokyo? What the heck?
Yep.
So there's a lot of those types of moments, and it's fun to see everyone do it at the same time. So that's something that I really enjoyed because there wasn't really waiting for others. You were experiencing the game for yourself while still being influenced by everyone around you through that passing mechanism.
Yeah, because they basically give you the cards that they don't want, and then you end up having to make them work for what's going on your board. I think that's a lot of fun. And yeah, my first impression of this game is basically because it's fast-paced and has that simultaneous play, that is just a really good game to have at the table.
And I really enjoyed the set collection of it, trying to match the tokens and trying to make everything be perfect. It has that similar feel to a lot of other games I like Calico and Cascadia, where you really want the perfect thing to go here, but sometimes that doesn't work and you just have to adapt slightly to make it work.
Yeah, or go on a walk to keep yourself energized.
Exactly.
But with that out of the way, let's jump right into our standout pieces before we get too far into talking about this game.
Well, I think Tyler already mentioned this, but the pace and the speed of the game. I think you're playing 13 rounds, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. And they play pretty quickly because you play a card, you pass a card. You play 2 cards, you pass 2 cards. So there's not a lot of downtime between turns. Sometimes you're waiting slightly for somebody to make a decision, but at the same time, you're still trying to optimize your board. So you really feel focused on your own journey as much as possible.
Yes, yeah, it does feel like slightly solitary when you are making those decisions, but where that player interaction really comes along is when you're drafting and passing. So I think that really speeds the game up in that sense. And then also just to add to like something Ilya was saying about how the game, or how it can kind of slow down when you are making those decisions, it is mostly when you fill the day and you're trying to decide whether or not you want the 1 of 3 resources or bonus actions before moving on to the next planning section.
I do really like the drafting mechanic because you do get those initially 2 cards, and all of a sudden you're passing one you don't want, and you don't have to see that, hopefully again, but you probably will because there is, especially in a 2-player game, things get passed back and forth. But if not, it's a circular. So there's cards that are always going, especially ones that are a little bit more stressful or unfavorable. You're going to have to select them eventually, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very unique, like in the sense where you're basically passing what you think you might not want, and then if you do end up getting it back, you have to readjust, reevaluate. My favorite part about the drafting mechanic in particular is that it starts off where you're only taking 1 card, and then your hands get bigger, and like the center phases. So now all of a sudden you're taking 2 cards.
You have 4 cards in your hands, so it's like a lot of choices.
And 2 of those cards are new, 2 of those cards may be things you've already seen before. So it's this very interesting dynamic where again, all of a sudden it's just increased ever so slightly in that stress mode, but then it tries to pull back by letting you only draft 1 card in the end rounds.
And fill in the days, make sure they all make sense and work.
Yeah, exactly. It is stressful at that point already with 1 card because your board is so full already.
Yeah. I like it to think of it too a little bit in the thematic sense where you're like, do we go to the temple or do we go to the Rescue Cat Cafe? Well, I want to go to the Rescue Cat Cafe, so you can look at the temple and figure out if you want to go to the temple.
Yeah.
But then later Tyler's like, well, I really want to go to the temple. And then all of a sudden we're competing and seeing whose trip is going to be better and whose trip we're actually going to go on. That's
true, yeah. When you play with as a couple, it's definitely like, oh, who can plan the better trip? Because
that's 3 or 4 people too. Everyone's just planning the best trip.
Oh, I'm going to steal some of those ideas. That is very true. I think the other piece that I want to talk about that leans into the drafting mechanic is that balancing act that happens here. So you have these symbols that you're trying to match. Sometimes it is beneficial, especially if you plan on taking the train a lot, to match those symbols in all 3, or have 3 matching symbols, I suppose, because there are ways to get 2 in 1 card. Anyways, having those moments where you're like, okay, I need to try and balance this to get those symbols so I can get a train is perfect. However, you don't always want to be going for the 3 symbols because what ends up happening is you're so evenly spread out in all of the symbols that you only score yourself 4 points for
If that.
Yeah, if that, for some of the or for the end game scoring, and that can feel kind of unfortunate. So it's this, again, balancing act of like bouncing back and forth between, do I really need that tier 3 bonus, or can I just play this card to ensure that I'm getting 8 points from my shopping experiences that I'm going on, or so on and so forth.
Well, it's the adaptability of it as well. If all of a sudden you're drafting hands that just don't work for you, how do you adapt to make the best of your trip? Which I really like. And I think the cool element too is a satisfaction track. So like if something's too expensive or not pleasant, you get a little bit stressed, or you get very happy if things are more affordable and more the experience is better. But I like that you only move the scoring track when they reach the end. So you can have like a balancing act in the middle and kind of balance them out and make sure that you're not really reaching the negative points, especially because I think a lot of the negative point cards give you more.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's kind of like this, again,
balancing act, exactly. I think the last thing we'll mention here is that the games have been really close.
The games have been really close.
We've played this game many times now. We've introduced it to a few friends too, and usually it's within the games. You score more than 100 points, which is great. But they've all been within like 5 to 10 points, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. My last point would be like the relevancy of the actual trips. So I think a lot of the cards, well, it is Let's Go to Japan. So the things that you are seeing are in Tokyo, they're in Kyoto. So those things that you can actually experience yourself if you ever do decide to make that trip over. And it's providing that little like education piece, which I think is very, very neat.
Yeah, flavor text. And there's a lot of flavor text in the rule book as well. So there's some, like one of the things I learned is that Tokyo has the most Michelin star restaurants in the world. The city that has the most.
That's cool.
Which I didn't know before. So that's really super neat. But yeah, you can definitely take the trip that you plan and do it in real life.
Yeah.
So maybe you're going to Japan and are overwhelmed with all the choices of all the things you can do. Maybe you play this game and figure out what you are going to do. Who scored higher points? Whose satisfaction was higher? Well, that's one way to find out.
Exactly. And I'm sure there's a lot more to do when you go visit Japan, but this is a great...
Those are expansions.
Yeah, maybe. This is a great capture moment for what's happening, and I really appreciate that. So with that out of the way and our standouts, then I guess the question is like, where can people find more about this? What's happening with Let's Go to Japan?
Well, there is a Kickstarter. This game is coming to crowdfunding. So you can click that link down below, learn a little bit more about the game, check out all that is to offer, any other reviews, because there's lots of information about this game, because I've seen a lot of people get really excited in covering this game as well. So ask those questions, because we're always happy to answer in the comments down below. If something's not clear, if you want to learn a little bit more about something, we're happy to answer your questions.
Exactly, yep.
And yeah.
Overall, what do we think about Let's Go to Japan?
I really enjoyed this game. I think this is a game that is easy to play. It plays quickly. There's an educational component to it. And it feels very thematic.
It does.
And I love, like, I'm a planner at heart. Like, I plan and organize, and I have Excel sheets for everything. And it's just very fun to me. So this is like a planner's dream, because you plan the best trip that you can plan. And there's a solo mode here as well that you can play and continue to plan that perfect trip.
Yeah, this game is a lot of fun. I think the drafting element is really cool. I didn't even mention the highlight of the day and how it is impacted by things you've done in the past for your trip. I think that is also a very, very nice touch to this game. So I look forward to showing it to more and more folks, and I'm just really happy.
Very well thought out, for sure. Now, for our question of the day today, it's actually different than the one that I planned.
Oh, geez.
Are you ready to be on the spot? How do you plan your trips? Like, what is your process? Do you just buy the tickets and figure it out along the way? Do you have a detailed itinerary of all the places that you go to? What is your process for planning a vacation or a trip?
I feel like it just depends on the vacation that we're going to go on. I like to leave a lot of room for just doing, like, while you're there. I think that's a lot of fun. I think if you have a sense of the types of stuff you want to get involved with, then that's really important. However, if you're really trying to experience certain things, like Let's Go to Japan, like Japan is a great example, actually. I think when and if we ever travel to Japan, I will plan more accordingly for the things that I really, really, really want to see, but it won't be like minute by minute. I think that's a little too intense for my planning motivations, but it could be perfect for somebody else.
I think my strategy is typically how we did our France trip.
Yeah.
We had cities that we were going to, and we booked all of our trains and flights and accommodations.
Yeah.
And then in each city we had, here's 3 things we want to check out.
Mm-hmm.
I do wish we actually booked some tickets for some of those things earlier, because some of them we couldn't go because it was very last minute.
Yeah.
But I like having 1 or 2 main things we want to go to and that planned. And then variety, here's, if we want to go to museums, like here's choices that we have.
Yeah.
And depending how we're feeling that day, because sometimes you're also pretty run down or you're not feeling the best, and it's nice to do something more low key and have options.
De-stress. A vacation is not meant to be super stressful.
Exactly. So that's my planning technique.
I approve.
Well, thank you so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed our content, consider checking out our Patreon. It's hit that link down below and give us that thumbs up, subscribe. We really appreciate all the support you give to our channel.
Yes, again, thanks so much for watching, and we hope you go and check out Let's Go to Japan if it's your type of game. Until next time, though, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.